For this installment of Adobe Illustrator demos, I'm going to go over clipping masks. And we'll discuss what a clipping mask is. I'll use a shape to create a clipping mask. We'll go over creating a custom clipping path for your masks, how to make and release clipping masks, and then what happens when we rasterize the results. We'll take a look at that. Typically in practice, I have used clipping paths when I want to isolate a part of an image that I don't want to show all of the image but just a certain part. So if I wanted to isolate this butterfly, for example, I might want to just simply add it to a collage or a group of other images within a composition, and I want to throw out the square background and just create a nice ellipse around that. So using my ellipse tool, I can do that. Now I'm going to bring up my layers here so that I can see what I'm working on, and we want to be working on the layer that has the butterfly on it. And if I click and drag using the ellipse tool, I can move that into place until I'm kind of happy with where I've got that ellipse and the size of that shape. And I'm going to use a white color, so I'm going to go ahead and keep those default colors, but I don't need the stroke. So I can select and choose none for the stroke. In Habit, I use this white color because in another demonstration later on you'll learn about transparency masks and how you use gradients for transparency masks. So it's just a habit of mine to choose white because white communicates to Illustrator that you want all of the image to show through, or you want all of this selected area to show through as shown by the path of the shape. Another important thing to keep in mind is that the shape needs to be in front of the bitmap that you would like to mask out. If it is not, under Object, Arrange, you can choose Bring to Front to ensure that that object is in front. Now I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select both objects, and now I'm going to create my clipping mask. Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And now you can see we've got a nice oval shape around just the butterfly. Sometimes I use very specific paths that I create, custom paths, in order to isolate a specific part of an image and not just a shape. And I can do that using the pen tool. So under Object, Clipping Mask, Release, I'm going to release this mask that I've made. When I do that, Illustrator has turned that mask object or that ellipse path to something that's pretty easy to lose track of. So in that case, sometimes it's important to bring your layers panel up so that you can highlight the path, and then you can actually click on the trash tool to get rid of that path when it's difficult to find. So that's one way your layers panel could be used. So I can isolate maybe just the wings, for example. I can use the pen tool, and I can begin by clicking and dragging and going around the wing to select it. But I've actually already created a path in the interest of time in demonstration. So if I show this wing path here on this particular layer, I'm going to copy and cut. I'm going to hide that layer. I'm going to move back to the layer in which I'm working with the butterfly, which is just on layer 1 for now. And I'm going to Command V or paste that path. And of course, if you're working in a Windows environment, you would use Control V to paste, Control C to copy. Okay, I've pasted that wing path there, and now it's just around the wing of the butterfly. I'm going to zoom out so that you can see what's going on a little bit easier. I'm going to convert this path now to a white color once again, And I don't actually need a stroke color, so I can turn that off. Notice I'm using the control panel in this case to do that. You can do either way. You can use the color here on your toolbar, or you can use the colors in the control panel. Again, we need to make sure that that path is in front of the bitmap, which it is. I will hold down my Shift key to select both objects. And now under Object, Clipping Mask, Make. Now you can see we've isolated the wings, which looks kind of cool. Well, what does that look like in the Layers panel? If we bring it up here, you can see that Illustrator treats the two objects as a connected group or a clip group. You can see a clipping path and part of the image that has been clipped. Now, sometimes working with printers you can run into trouble because some of the printing mechanisms don't always honor or recognize the clip group. And that really depends on the relationship that you've built with the printer that you're working with. And it also has something to do with what file type you're using, how you've exported this graphic. I've found in some cases it's important for me to rasterize the clip group that I've made. So let me just show you how to do that. I select this connected clip group on layer 1. And now I go under Object, Rasterize. And here I've got some different things to choose. I'm going to stay in the CMYK mode, and I'm going to choose a high resolution because we were talking about printing, and in this case I was wanting this to be prepared for print, but I want to keep the background transparent. So I want to retain that bit around, or I want to throw out the background, everything but the wing. So we're going to keep the clipping mask, preserving spot colors. There's no spot colors used in this particular object, and we don't need to add anything. We don't need to add any space around that object in this case. So I'm going to click OK. Once I've made those selections, the selection contains raster objects, which will be re-rasterized but not added to the clipping mask. Click OK. Now, if we look at our layers again, it's a clipping group inside a clipping group, which is a little strange. But if you look at the image layer, you can see that the image layer has now changed. It doesn't show everything else around the wing. It just shows the isolated wing, which is kind of interesting. And in fact, I can actually throw away that clipping path, and it still retains the wing as intended. And I can add other objects to the stage if I wanted to, if there was multiple layers going on here. So let's see what that looks like. I'm just going to send this backwards. Object, arrange, send backward. And you can see here that it's retaining that transparency, or it's retaining the clip or the mask that we made. But you might find that depending on the print export settings that you have going on, that you'll have better luck with this rasterized graphic of the clipping mask than if you had just simply kept the clipping path as a connected group in your layers. And that really depends on, developing a relationship with the printer and doing some test prints to see what works. But just a little tip I've noticed when working with unusual clipping paths. And that concludes your introduction to working with clipping paths in Adobe Illustrator.